everyone. I'm Dominique Hamler, Executive Director of the Los Angeles Outpatient Center, and welcome back to our Roundtable series. Today, we're exploring a topic that is full of light and hope. I'm so excited. How to find joy in recovery. And recovery, whether it's from substance or a mental health crisis or struggle, it involves a lot of challenges and successes. So to help us talk about this, we have a very special guest, you guys, Mark Winkler. He is Program Operations Supervisor for Tarzana Treatment Center's youth program. So Mark, welcome.
Thank you.
And please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the mission of Tarzana Treatment Center and what you do.
Thank you first for the opportunity to come and share space with you. You said it, I'm a supervisor over in the youth division at Tarzana Treatment Centers. Tarzana has been around for like 52 years, plus years. It started out specifically working with individuals who are having an addictive or alcoholic experience, and then it's grown, right? So our first location was in Tarzana, but now we are in 19 different locations, right? It's a big operation. It's like Kaiser 2.0 operation.
There you go. So that means you're helping a lot of people.
We're helping a lot of people, and we work with both youth and adults, right? And so we have inpatient programming, we have outpatient programming, we have detox, we have transitional housing for people who are afflicted with HIV, we have a reentry program, and so there's a lot of different departments that we have, and we try to pride ourselves on integrated healthcare, right? So if system over here working with youth and then that youth is transitioning but still in treatment, then that person can have a warm handoff into our adult programming. Yeah, so it's a wonderful organization. I supervise most of the grants that we get into the programming. Grants from SAPC, Substance Abuse Prevention Control, from Department of Justice, and Department of Mental Health. And so it's a joyful experience because working with grants allows me to go into many different environments, right? So we're just opening up relationships in Glendale Unified School District. For the first time, we're going to be offering on-site drug counseling. Now, most people are familiar with mental health counselors being on campus, but that the experience of actually having drug treatment on campus is a new thing.
That's huge.
It's huge, and it's like amazing that it's taken so long, right?
It's true.
Because we've been fighting the war on drugs a long time, and so it's mostly in different treatment centers. But we're bringing the I don't like to say fight because that creates this warlike mentality, but we're bringing treatment and assistance and support to these different environments. Working with grants has allowed me to work with police departments. We've done workshops, and that was last year. We'd work with 3 different police departments, all in SPA 2 in the Valley. And the way we did it was very exciting because there's 4 or 5 different stakeholders involved. We had police, we had parents, we had youth, we had our mental health treatment center, and we did it in the police department. Right now, here's the thing. Most time you think of police, a lot of people in the police department, there's a problem going on, right?
That was my first thing, like, how did that go?
But it was wonderful because people got to see the different members of their community working for a cause that was really good to help kids to find joy without using drugs, helping parents to have parental joy, right? To be able to experience that parental joy by helping their children to navigate around these very difficult situations, but also to find parental joy in their parenting experience, which as a parent, right, we oftentimes don't connect with our parental joy because it becomes like this formulaic sort of robotic thing that we do, right? So we were able to have conversations with them. I never call it training when we're working with parents, even though it's psychoeducation. I like to call it like having a conversation. And then we were able to work with the police department to help them understand the dynamics that go along with people who are engaging in substance misuse, right? And so that's kind of, in a nutshell, that's what I do, and that's the wonderful organization that I do. They told me if I didn't plug Tarzana a few times, I was going to be in trouble. So.
Oh no, you have to plug Tarzana because we work with you all too.
Yes.
So we're joined at the hip. And, I'm just so impressed. I wouldn't call that a nutshell experience. I mean, that's pretty broad and vast and just incredible work, because I'm just resonating with you starting with youth. I work with adults, but if we can capture that, at those times when they're growing and they're trying to understand and going through puberty, and drugs are kind of glamorized in that sector of their lives. So
Absolutely.
It's good that we are educating them and helping them understand that.
And that's the thing, right? Because it is glamorized in television and movies, on social media posts, and it's easily accessible to them,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
From the fake drugs that they get on the streets to smoke shops that they're able to get this new drug that's Delta 8 drugs, which is essentially it's a cannabinoid because it's a synthetic, but it's not illegal for smoke shops to sell it, right? So if they could go in there and they can purchase it, or they can easily get access to it, because it's not too much carding that goes on in these places. And so we have been invited to come to elementary schools, to middle schools, and here's the thing. Here's the sad, tragic part of it. There's a tragic part of it, then there's a joyful part.
Yeah.
The joyful part is we get to give our information, right? The tragic part is we're giving it to students, fifth grade students who were caught vaping in bathrooms. And so that's the tragic part. So it's not just like dare, like stay away from drugs, just say no. It's actually they've experienced it, and now we have to, let them know the damaging aspects of it.
Correct. There's action behind just the awareness, right? Because
Absolutely.
I came up with all of the awareness, just say no, dare to stay away from drugs. But but if I do get involved in drugs, what am I doing?
Right.
And then understanding the impact it's going to have on my physical health and my mental health, which is a lot that some of the young people, they don't understand, right?
They don't understand the physical, the mental, or the social.
Right.
Right. Because the deeper you get involved in that, your social circle is going to change, because there are going to be people that use and people that don't use, right? And so you're disconnecting from probably a support system that if you did not disconnect, there'll be a seemingly an easier road for you to be on. So those are some of the messages that we try to impart and try to give them alternatives, because it's easy just to say no, and that's the first step, right? Say no, but then what are you saying yes to? Right, and so we have to give them options.
I also want to go back to something you said. You talked about, you didn't use the word addict. You talked about the experience of someone suffering or experiencing drug use, because we know it's a chemical dependence.
Yeah.
We know that mentally there's some mental health issues usually underlying, and people are self-medicating. So give me an idea what that looks like when you said the experience. Just
1920, when Dr. Bob and Bill W. started the Alcoholic Anonymous experience, or meetings, they wanted the people who came together to look at themselves as humans, right, having a difficult experience, right? Now, the language that comes out of that, that has developed, they say I'm an addict, right? But the intent was for them to see themselves as human, having this experience based upon a myriad of different reasons why. And so for me, I get the language that's used in the community, and I personally, I don't like to title someone that, because once you say that this is who I am, that becomes your identity. And you order your steps in that way. You say, you look at the world through the eyes of an addict, right? But if you look at yourself through the eyes of someone who's having an experience, right, you can have a different experience. You can take those glasses off once you gather the strength to do that, and then have a different experience, right? And you can maintain that experience, because now you're not afraid to walk towards joy. Right?
That's it.
But if you feel like I'm an addict, you're constantly going to be worried about people, places, and things. Now, you have to be conscious of that, right? There has to be an awareness once you do it. But if that becomes a barrier for people. And one the things, another thing that they really wanted, they created this, what they call the big book, right? And that book is sort of, right, in the anonymous community. It says on page 132, this according to, I've actually looked it up, but first I read it in this book, The Road to Recovery, the Road to Recovery, Destination Joy, right? Okay. That they wanted people to get back to their joy. Right?
Yeah.
And that becomes a fearful thing when people are having a recovery experience, because they get stuck in that sort of stage 1, stage 2 service and sort of making amends. But joy becomes a difficult thing. But when you see yourself as a human who's had a different experience, a difficult experience, destabilizing experience, but it was just that. It wasn't a life sentence. And so that's my crazy reason why I don't say that.
We love that. It's just building awareness in my own personal, thoughts as far as just, because we get into the labeling and so now what you're telling me is kind of like reframing your thoughts on who you are and your struggles, because sometimes we're our own worst enemy, and we're criticizing ourselves, and we're not even acknowledging that it is a struggle, and it is time sometimes to get help, get professional help for the struggles that we have.
Absolutely.
Substance, mental illness, right?
Absolutely.
And then there's this marriage or bridge, if you will, between mental health and substance. They kind of go hand in hand, right?
Sure.
You can't have one without the other almost, and you can't acknowledge one without the other as far as getting help and getting treatment and getting yourself on that path to joy.
Sure.
So I'm going to talk a little bit more about individuals recovering from substance and how they face like mental health challenges, right? In your experience, how does finding joy and seeking mental health support go hand in hand during the recovery process?
Yeah, so the recovery process starts the moment you acknowledge that you need this, you want to live a different life, right? So it begins at that moment. And then you go through the stages of working your program. Your program can include these anonymous meetings, therapy, restoration of damaged family relationships, friendships. So there's a whole gamut that goes along with that. But in doing that, you have to keep in mind that you are working towards this ultimate goal, right? And most people actually never get there because they don't say that this is my goal. Right. It's okay, because if they're not hurting themselves. But I think for me, the sad part is that they don't realize that on the other side of this journey is joy. Right. And so you have to begin in this recovery, you have to begin to see that you have a right to joy. And so once you establish that you have a right, then you can begin to look at the things that took that away from you, whether it be your own actions, whether it can be your connections and the misgivings of others that misguided you, whether it could be that could have started in childhood with adverse childhood experiences that set you on this path of getting away from your joy. So you look at all those dynamics, but you look at it through the perspective of I'm working back towards my joy, not just I'm working to be sober. Right now, sobriety is important because if I'm not sober, then I'm having a false, momentary, brief experience of joy, right? But to have sustained joy, of course, if you've had the experience of misusage, then you have to be sober, right? And so there's different things that you would do to, maintain your sobriety. But some people, unfortunately, they'll be 25 years sober. But if you go to the meetings with them or in counseling, you're still here like a sort of baseline of unhappiness, right? And that's the sad thing, because I've been in those rooms. I've been in Al-Anon rooms, and sometimes it's very heavy, right? And because the stories are heavy and life is heavy, but there's also so much joy out here. And the sad thing is we just don't experience that as human beings. We talk about joy, right, in a very superficial way, but not in a realistic way. I got introduced to the concept of joy through a young lady named Thea Monnier,
Okay.
She's been working on this concept for about 5 years. And as I started to talk with her about joy, I realized that, yeah, I haven't really been concentrated on my joy. I've worked on having peace in my life, but peace is not joy, right? And so I said, where is my joy?
Where's my joy?
What brings me joy? And just asking that first question, what brings me joy,
Yeah.
can ignite a conversation in your mind, because what brings you joy then brings you to the question of, well, what's interrupting that joy, right? And so then you can incorporate that into your practice.
Right. I love that. Okay, guys, where is your joy? How you gonna find it? And how you gonna sustain it? Okay, guys, get yourself some joy. So my experience with joy is just what I learned as a child, the fruits of the spirit. You know, love, joy, peace, and I feel like that resonates with me too. I feel like I know a little bit more how to protect my peace,
Yes.
but the joy component, I need to do a little more work to master that.
Yeah, we all do.
Right.
We all do, because we get like snippets of and moments of joy, right? It's like walking in a cloudy day. Every once in a while, the sun would peek through, and it was like, oh, that's the joy, right? That's mostly how people experience joy. They kind of stumble into it. You mentioned two things, peace and love, right? I say that there's 4 ingredients to joy,
Okay.
right? To be able to bring joy to your life. There's peace and calmness.
Yes.
There's gratitude.
Okay.
There's self-love, and then there's curiosity.
Oh, yeah.
Then we go through each one.
Okay.
So if your peace is disrupted, right, either internally or externally, then having joy would just be momentarily,
Got it.
right? And so I have a practice of meditation,
Okay.
right? There's a whole study behind meditation and how it helps to bring you into a particular state. You know, it's your nervous system. You're now in the parasympathetic nervous have been activated, and that inner roommate that really tells you that your life is messed up and everything you're doing is wrong. And then you wake up with that mindset, and then you pick up your phone and you see a certain outfit that you don't have, and then you start judging your own outfit. You're like, there's no joy around me, right? So having that balance through meditation really does calm you. And in that calmness, your artistic side can start to blossom. Your feeling about yourself can start to feel different. And then there's gratitude, right? The practice of gratitude. When I wake up in the morning, if you saw my phone, I go on my notes and I write down 10 things that I'm grateful for the day before,
Oh, wow. Okay.
right? Why do I do that? Because it sets a tone for me that I don't know what I'm going to experience today, right? But yesterday, this is what brought me joy. And those things, a lot of those things are still present. It can just be talking to my daughter, having, being able to purchase gas, right?
Certainly.
So I fortify my thinking, right? It's like having, when you're in deep waters, you have a scuba gear on, right? Secure underwater breathing apparatus. So I wrap that around my mind before I pick up my phone. Because when you pick up your phone, you're introduced to things that will inevitably shake your being, right? You hear about wars over in the Middle East, the crazy stuff going on in the election, the economy, if you're a parent, worrying about your children, just going to school. So there's so much. But then you can have a sense of peace, right? Because you know that, there's a lot that I would like to not be the way it is, right? And but in those things, I really don't have a lot of control. I can contribute to the change of those things, but I don't have a lot of control over that. But these things that are joyful in my life, I cherish those things. And then there's self-love. Tara Brach, a wonderful writer, talked about radical self-love, right? Radical acceptance. You have to have a radical acceptance of yourself.
That's right.
Why is that important? Because, again, if you're judging yourself by the standards of things outside of yourself, then you will always have this sense of inadequacy, right? And with that, this hard joy and inadequacy can't sustain. Joy can't sustain in that atmosphere. So the more that you can feel good about yourself, and I don't care what flaws you may think you have, right? you have to look in the mirror and see someone that you love. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't improve yourself, right? If you're going to school, does that mean that you don't love yourself because you want to finish school or get a higher degree? No, that's love, right? If you want to try a different outfit, does that mean you don't love yourself? No, you do. It's so radical, self-love. And then curiosity, right? At a certain age, we forget about being curious.
Yeah.
We forget that the phones that we have, the planes that we fly, all came from people being curious about life, right? So the more curious we are, the more we stay connected to the artistic side of ourselves.
Absolutely.
So those are the 4 ingredients to sustaining and maintaining joy within.
That
My
is
4
beautiful.
ingredients.
That is beautiful. I actually took those notes when I heard you speak the first time, and that's when I said, okay, team, we have to have him on our podcast. He's here, folks. So I think that is just a beautiful way to conduct your life. And then how you spoke about, you have to set the temperature gauge, and set the atmosphere and set the tone so those ingredients will be able to, live and be sustained together, right? So absolutely. I love that. And then the gratitude, I have to go back to the gratitude because that one is just resonating with me because that one is so easy for me to forget what I'm grateful for. Yeah. And it's so easy for me to get bogged down with kind of how you describe it, intrusive thoughts, negativity about yourself, and with the radical self-love, I knew about the self-love, but I'm going to add the radical piece because I need to be my own best friend, right? I need to have, another thing I'm challenged with is having grace and compassion for myself. I feel like I can do it for other people, but for myself, it's so difficult sometimes. So I think that is absolutely beautiful. But the gratitude,
you got to celebrate yourself too.
There you go.
Because most people don't do that,
right?
And because I ask people, to think of 5 things about yourself that you just want to celebrate. That's really good. And most people have problems with that, just finding 5 simple things. But it's in the celebration that we connect to the wonderful things that we do. Yes. And then we remember the steps that we took, right? Because when you celebrate yourself, then there's a conscious awareness of what you are celebrating. Right. We kind of just stumble through life haphazardly and we do things and it could be remarkable, but we don't stop. Right. We don't revel in that moment. Right. We don't bask in that moment. We just keep moving, right? So I say celebrate yourself. That's a part of that radical self-love. Celebrate what you have done. Even if there's no one else in your cheering corner, right? You have to create your own celebratory, team first. And then that helps you to walk taller, to walk stronger. And then that reminds you of the things that you've done, and then that helps your gratitude practice.
Right. Yeah. So they're all connected. It's like connected. A network, right?
It's a personal network.
I love it. And that's what we, encourage our clients to do here at LAOP, and I'm sure it's similar at TTC, but we want you to show up for yourself,
Absolutely.
Right? Getting treatment, walking through those doors, deciding that you're going to be sober, deciding you're going to address the mental illness that's been plaguing you, is an opportunity for you to operate in radical self-love, right? Absolutely. It's an opportunity for you to walk in gratitude because I tend to keep it simple. People ask, how are you? Well, my feet are on the ground. That's it. My shoulders are back. I have breath in my body, so it's not, did I pay the water bill? Whatever, it could be, it's so easy to focus on things that are going wrong.
And you can forget. I mean, you said that when you start treatment, right? When someone comes through the doors at Tarzana, it should be a celebration.
Absolutely.
Right? Because sometimes the person who's walking through the door forgets that because maybe people around them, because they don't know the experience of how hard it is to start the journey of separating yourself from usage. They're like, oh, well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to be your first cheerleader.
You really do.
And then once people see that, okay, you're walking this journey, they will join on because then they can feel like I'm not going to get let down by this person because I see they're really on that road. But you have to begin your celebration the moment you think the thought, I want to stop having this experience. Yeah.
Okay, folks, celebrate yourself. Figure out ways to celebrate you, okay? Because that's my homework, and that's your homework too.
There you go.
So then again, back with And this is one of our missions here, just destigmatizing mental illness, and I hear the words that you're talking about with treatment, and you even shifted my lens on addiction and how a person would address themselves. This speaks to more in the alignment of how are we destigmatizing getting treatment for substance or mental illness, and just opening up that space, so people feel accepted.
And it still does exist. The stigma about mental health treatment is becoming less.
Yeah.
Especially with the younger generations, right? They're on TikTok, they're on Instagram, diagnosing themselves at this point. They haven't even seen a therapist yet.
It's true.
I have ADHD. That's wonderful, because they are saying that there's something that's interrupting my joy, and I need to look at it, right? That's beautiful. But back in the day, if we had something that people who felt was not normal, we wanted to stay away from even thinking about that, because we felt there would be ridicule. So I think with mental health treatment, there's been so many advances and so much good work that's been done to let people know that if there has to be an interruption in your behavior, interruption in your activities so you can get better, then that's a good thing. And so people are starting to feel that that's okay. Now, when you talk about substance use disorder treatment, there's a different ball game, because there is still a lot of shame, a lot of blame. There is the illegality of it, right? And so there's still so much that people are afraid to come forth, right? Parents, if they have to bring their kids in for substance use treatment, it's like, well, how did they get the drugs?
Yeah.
Right?
The guilt.
The guilt part, right?
Yeah.
And then the guilt part can lead to actual conversations. Like, how did that kid get access to so much alcohol and so much drugs? So there's still a heavy stigma with that. So I think the community still needs to do a lot of work about education to let people know that treatment for substance use it's a good thing. It's you're just acknowledging that there's an interruption in your life, and there's a community of people who have a lot of wonderful information that's built over the years, so how to help you get back on point, right? And so it really is just accepting that it's okay. Right? But it's difficult because of those factors. We find a lot of resistance in the community. And then when you're dealing with, and then the fact that certain drugs are becoming, like marijuana is becoming legal, right? And so someone who is whatever age up to 20, they say the only reason that I shouldn't use drugs is because I can't legally get access to it. They're not looking at the fact that most of the time that they're consuming like marijuana, it's through vapes, and it's highly unregulated. The levels of THC is much greater. And we don't know if there's been traces of fentanyl put in there to increase the addictive factor, and so, and including edibles. And so so there's a lot of education that need to be done. That's just on the the physical use, and then what happens to the body as a result of the usage of it, right? How the development of your brain is interrupted, the damage that you do to your lungs when you are inhaling chemicals, right? So it's not a judgment for people who use it, right? But it's really just that people just aren't educated. They're not making educated decisions about whether or not they should use or not. So I think the more that the information can get out there, the more that people know it's safe to come forth to treatment, we can help to that destigmatization of treatment for substance use treatment. And that's something that we're working with at Tarzana. We do a lot of education, especially in the younger population. We do a wonderful job educating parents on what they can do in their home to support their children, and what they can do to help their children support when they're outside of the home.
Parents, I'm a parent.
There you go.
We need so much support. It's so much that we don't know. It's so much that our children have access to, that is damaging, damaging to their mental development, to their mental health, their emotional health. And then they don't understand, like you said, the physiological ramifications of consumption a lot of times. They just don't understand it.
They don't.
So I'm grateful that you are starting young and planting those seeds with our younger generation. And at LEOP, I have to say, the young population, these 18 to 24-year-olds, they have it they have an understanding that, time out.
Yeah.
I need to get help.
Yeah.
I need to transition my life, and
Sure.
do something different. And I want to go back to what you said too, and I just want to share this with our members here, our audience. You said that it's okay.
Yeah.
And we want to let you guys know that it is okay. It's okay not to be okay.
Absolutely.
It's okay to have an experience where you're using drugs or you're not seeking help. We want you to know that we offer places of acceptance.
Absolutely.
Places where you can get what you need, and this is going to set you on that path where you're finding joy. Finding joy, you guys. That's the ultimate goal, finding joy. How can someone in recovery reconnect with happiness, especially if joy feels unfamiliar after a long period of struggle?
First thing they have to do is be encouraged to know that it's a right. And the fact that they have strayed away doesn't make them any less entitled to it. I don't like the word of entitlement, but with joy, I love the concept of entitlement when it comes to joy and happiness, right? And so understanding that, helping them to understand that you were dislodged from your joy, but your destination is joy, but you got taken off the path, right? So that's first. And then it's letting them know that there's a multiplicity of places where joy can exist, right? So when I'm talking to people, one of the things I do is ask them to think of a time when you had a joyful experience, right? When there was no substance. If it's in the substance use environment, I say no substance. Or if it's just a generalized environment, I just say think of a time where you had really a lot of joy. And then I say connect with that feeling. Resonate with that feeling. Now, tell me what the experience was, what you felt like, right? And then I'll say that feeling does not only live in that one location. There are a multiplicity, again, of locations. I call them joy locations, where they can go and experience the joy that they're working on with the 4 ingredients, the joy that they're working on with the strategies and skills that they got through their recovery therapy or recovery environment, right? But there's so many different places. Like if they say, well, I was at a birthday, man, it was a surprise birthday party for me, and everyone came. This was before I started to use, and everyone showed me love, and that was so beautiful. I said, okay, that feeling is inside of you. That feeling can come at any moment, right? But we've had a false idea or false notion that this usage can give us that feeling.
That's right.
And but that's really, as you said, temporary. But that feeling exists, and it's your feelings, right? And so you can have that going to the beach. You can have that reading your child a book. You can have it reading yourself a book. You can have it doing medication. You can have it looking in the mirror and saying, I love myself.
Right.
You can have it going to church. You can have it doing prayer. There's so many different joy locations. I can sit here for 20 hours and not exhaust the amount of joy locations that we have access to.
I believe it.
So it really is about helping them you have now all of these new tools. You have to begin to have the confidence that you got here with support, but you got here because of you. And so now this next step will be because of you, but know that you have still an environment of support around you, and reinforce that part, right? Because either you use it or not, we all need support.
We need it.
We don't live on an island. We're not hermits.
No.
Right? And so the experience of being a human, we have to rely on other people, right? So it's now it's about having faith that you won't let them down.
Right.
If you're in recovery, you won't let yourself down. And so that's the importance of staying in those, in that a recovery environment. But at a certain point, it is about disconnecting from the umbilical cord of dependence, if you will, and know that you can take the training wheels off now and go experience your joy. And it can be done in baby steps, right? You don't want to rush off on a 40-day vacation to someplace where you may have complete access.
Oh, my goodness.
Maybe it's going a weekend or up the coast for a drive and feeling okay that you are going to pass by some environments where you used to go to and use. It's about feeling confident that you've done the work.
Right.
That you've done the work to regain your joy, to get connected again to your joy. You have a right to that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that. You have a right to it. You are entitled to it.
You're entitled to it.
Love that.
That's the only time entitlement is good.
The only time, folks. I love it. So, what are some practical steps people can take to rediscover their passions and joys in life post-recovery?
There's so many. I think at the basis of it, though, it's about being curious. Yeah. Right? We talked about the 4 ingredients, right? Curiosity. I think the more you're curious, the more you will start to discover things about yourself that had become dormant, right? Or that you didn't know that you had, right? It could be new stuff, or it could be, before I was involved in usage, I was a pretty good artist.
Wow, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so going out and looking at nature and start to really say, where's my muse now? Right? Where could I find this? If you were into music, you may listen to this, to go outside and just hear the sounds of nature and just wanted to start creating music again. Right. So I think for me, it's about being curious again. It's about feeling okay with being curious again.
Yeah.
Right. It's about feeling a sense of, I'm not going to mess up if I allow myself to expand into the love of myself, an expansive love. So now you're expanding past just going to the recovery meetings, seeing your therapist. That you have to do that. If that's part of your recovery experience, then continue doing that.
Absolutely.
But expand past that. Get curious about what can contribute to my joy, the sustainment of joy. Because it is a practice, right? If you think about the greatest musicians that you love, right, the greatest artists that you love, the greatest thinkers or minds, it was a practice that got them there.
That's right.
And I encourage you to understand this by saying how many people play sports, and people will raise their hand. I asked them, are you as good today when you first started? I mean, when you first started, are you as good as you are today? And they say, no, of course. And then I said, well, what got you there? It's practice. And that's what joy is. It's a practice.
Absolutely.
It's an everyday practice, because there's everyday things pull you from your joy. But the more you practice, then it becomes natural.
Right.
Right. The idea of, my brother would say, Mark, how can you, have joy when, that old saying, you get up in the morning happy, then you bump your toe? Well, pain doesn't last forever. Right? It'd be temporary.
Thank goodness.
And it could, right? Exactly. It can temporarily dislodge you from that feeling of joy. But if you have a practice of joy, you can go more quickly back to it. If your foundation is joy, but if your joy is quicksand, something happens, you walk outside and you see something, you hear a siren, and you are very connected to human experiences, you say, oh my God, someone's probably hurt, right? And then you fall out of your joy. No, there's been studies done. People have, found joy locked up in prison. Nelson Mandela came out seemingly a very joyful person. Now, how did that happen?
Great example.
Right? So he was able to stay connected to the right that he had joy, and you can't take my joy from me. I can only surrender it to you. I can surrender it to the world, but you can't take it from me. I read a book called The Half Never Told.
Okay.
And they talked about the experience of slavery, right? And there was one portion of the book where the slave master would see the slaves dancing after working from sunup to sundown. And they looked at him in amazement. I thought I beat them down.
Yeah.
But they would be celebrating over the mush that they would get to eat. And they couldn't understand it.
Wow.
But they didn't surrender their joy. They connected through their spirituality. They connected through the communal love of one another. And they stayed within their joy. Right. And because of that, we had the birth of the civil rights movement. We had the birth of all the beautiful music that we've given to the world, all the inventions, all of that. They couldn't take our joy. Yeah. And so no one can take your joy. You just have to know it's a right. Mm-hmm. And once you know that, once you know I have a right to this, it's mine, then you begin to fight for it. Mm-hmm. Then you begin to go into practice of it. There you go.
Right. Oh, my goodness. I'm having a moment. Do not, absolutely do not surrender your joy. I'm holding on to mine.
Hold on to your joy.
I'm holding on to
There
it.
you go.
Because I think I've been surrendering my joy sometimes.
Yes, and it happens. It's a subconscious thing.
Yeah.
We do it, right? We do it in
Right.
relationships.
Right.
We define our joy by other people's joy. And the moment a lot of people get into relationships and they want to please the person so much that they circle around that person in terms of what makes this person happy, as opposed to saying, how can I share my joy with this person? And what does that do?
Right.
When you share your joy, as opposed to mimicking their joy, when that person leaves, whether it be platonic or romantic, you don't collapse
Wow.
into a depressing mindset, right? Because you say, oh, that experience is over. It's sad, but there was so much beauty in it. And then you were able to go on because your joy didn't leave out that door with that person.
Exactly.
Your joy stays within,
Wow.
right? Activated by those 4 ingredients.
Come on, guys. What advice do you have for someone who feels stuck or fearful about moving forward with their life after recovery?
Sure, it's natural, right? Don't beat yourself up.
Yeah.
Know that this is just what accompanies this part of this new experience. Don't be afraid. Don't forget your practices. Don't forget your community, your communal support. Don't forget to look in the mirror and say, I love myself. Don't forget to celebrate yourself. Don't isolate during those feelings. When you have that feeling, get out, right? Get
Right.
connected to people who can celebrate you, who can buoy you through that moment, right? But it's really just about staying connected to a healthy community and then staying healthy to the healthy community within yourself. And that community has been shaped by all the stuff that got you from, having a really severe addictive experience or alcoholic experience to not having that experience.
Yes.
There's a communal environment of things that you have brought within yourself. And it's easy to forget those things when we have a perilous moment, right? But that's why the practices are important, because when you can meditate, you calm that voice, that inner roommate, who, if that person was actually sitting right next to you, you would jettison that person from your apartment so
Absolutely.
quickly,
Yeah. Get out of here.
what are you doing?
Yeah.
But we allow that person to hold space in our thoughts so much because we don't have a practice of interrupting that. Start with 5 minutes. Start with guided meditation. You can
Yes.
go on, use your phone, go on YouTube. There's a whole bunch of, instructions or music that you can listen to, and then get it up to 20, 30, 40 hour a day, right? And during that time, you're strengthening your will, the ability to quiet that voice.
Right.
Then you can remember in those moments the things that you have done. Your recall would be greater because it's not being interrupted by all those corrupted thinking.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Oh, wow. When working with those in recovery, what advice do you give when it comes to prioritizing their mental health when newly sober?
It's a reminder that it's a process. It's an ongoing process, right? And the process started when you came through the doors and you're getting all this information, right? So you realize that during the rough moments, as I said before, you still have access to these tools that you have, not to ignore signs that you've learned that are triggers for you, right? Not to forget those things, not to overlook those things. Pay attention to it, but don't give energy towards it like
Right.
it's some sort of dysfunction about you. Don't get locked into that false thinking. Stay in community where the support, your mental health community can support you, right? So it's really about just staying in the mindset of I could say mental recovery or substance
Yeah.
abuse recovery,
Yeah.
but really staying in the mindset of joy, right? Because the more you stay in that mindset, the more easy it is for you to remember the things that help you to get to that mindset, right? And so you then are able to then fall back quicker on your practices. And if it's going back to another meeting, that's what you have to do during your mental health recovery or mental health sustainment. If it's re-engaging with therapy again, then that's what you have to do,
Absolutely.
right? So it's really just about understanding and really saying to myself, this is what I've done to get to this point, And I may not need all of it, but there may be aspects of it I may need to access, or I may need to just revisit, and just be okay with that. And don't judge yourself.
Yeah.
If you do fall into a moment of vulnerability, if you fall into a moment of sadness, or if you get depressed, or if you feel like that urge to use, don't judge yourself, right? Because when you judge yourself, then you start to feel even worse about a human reaction, about a human moment.
Right.
So don't judge yourself. You have community, and don't forget that. It's really, there's a lot of heavy emphasis on community. So we try to work ourselves out of a job, really, right? And part of that is to connecting them to, people, places, and activities in the community that can help them to sustain their sobriety, that can help them to feel mentally strong. And so those are just some of the things we do.
That is fantastic, because preparation is key.
Absolutely.
Right? We want people to be prepped and ready for success.
There you go.
And then we just cannot get away from, we're circling back to finding that joy.
That's
That's part of it.
That's it.
Love it. So lastly, can you just share with us one thing that you do, and you may have already said it before, but maybe another thing that brings you joy?
Well, there's so many, but I love spending time with my daughters, right? My youngest daughter is really into comic books,
Okay.
right? And so we spend a lot of time going to different comic book stores, and we walk a lot. We do a lot of walking. So when we would walk when she was younger, it was all about Disney and all of that, right?
Right, of course.
But now it's about the complexities of the relationships of the people in the comic books, and I'm just fascinated by it. So that's one thing that really brings me joy, just experiencing time with my loved ones. I love that, and honestly, I love doing the work that I do. I feel like I found. We all say, "What's my purpose?"
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
I really feel like I found my purpose is to help individuals to understand that, joy is out there. Your joy is out there. Your joy is within, and you can experience it over and over and over and over again. No one ever stays in a complete, total state of joy, right? We're humans. That we just, you may have a moment, but your foundation can be joy.
Yes.
Right. And so that's what brings me joy.
I think that's beautiful. And going back to community and how
Yes,
important that is.
absolutely.
And then you said the community within yourself.
Yes.
I
Yes.
just, that really resonates with me too. And that connection to finding community within yourself, and then that radical self-love.
There you go.
And then your daughter came from you, right?
She
so
did.
it makes
That little
sense,
rascal.
right? That makes perfect sense of why you would
Yeah.
find joy just
Absolutely.
communing with your family and being with people that
100%.
are special to you.
100%.
I think that's lovely. So guys, another homework assignment: find the joy within yourself, and then find things that bring you joy. That's the focus. Mark, I just really want to thank you so much for just sharing your valuable insights and experiences with us today. And our listeners, I'm going to say it again, you guys. Finding joy.
Find your joy.
Find it. It's within inside, right?
It's within. It's here first.
It's right here first.
Uh-huh.
And then you can explore other ways to find joy.
Absolutely. And find it within, and then go out and explore your joy locations.
Love it.
There you go.
Multiple locations. So whether it's during treatment or after treatment, finding your joy is a powerful tool for healing and living a fulfilled life. Wouldn't you agree?
I'm 100%.
And if you want to learn more about Tarzana Treatment Center and their services, please visit tarzanatc.org. If you have any more questions about topics, or you'd like us to tackle different topics in the future, please leave them in the comments below. And to learn more about services here at LAOP, visit us at laopcenter.com. That is laopcenter.com. Stay tuned for our next episodes, and as always, take care of yourself, and we're going to find what?
Find our joy.
Joy in each and every day. See you next time.